An unexpected encounter. Earl Winters shuffled along the winding path of Oakwood Cemetery, his worn shoes scuffing against the gravel. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. Earl pulled his faded jacket tighter around his thin frame, his eyes fixed on the familiar route ahead. The cemetery sprawled before him, a peaceful expanse of rolling hills dotted with headstones and ancient oak trees. Sunlight filtered through the golden leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. It was a beautiful place, Earl thought, but its beauty was lost on him now. For Earl, it was simply the place where Ruth lay. As he approached Ruth's grave, Earl's heart grew heavy, just as it did every day. The polished granite headstone stood before him, Ruth's name etched in elegant script. Earl knelt slowly, his joints creaking in protest, and placed a gentle hand on the cool stone. "Hello, my love," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm here again." Earl's mind drifted back to happier times, memories of Ruth's warm smile and the sound of her laughter. They had been married for 40 years, a lifetime of love and shared dreams. Now, without her, Earl felt adrift in a world that no longer made sense. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small yellow daisy, Ruth's favorite. With trembling fingers, he placed it at the base of the headstone, a splash of color against the somber gray. "I miss you so much, Ruth," Earl said, his voice barely audible. "The house is so quiet without you. I keep expecting to hear your voice, to see you around every corner." Just as he began to lose himself in the memories, he noticed a small figure sitting a few yards away, beneath the sprawling branches of an old oak tree. Earl squinted into the sunlight, trying to make sense of the scene. It was a young black boy, perhaps no older than 8 or 9, sitting on the grass with his knees drawn up to his chest. His small shoulders shook as he quietly wept, his face buried in his hands. Earl's heart sank at the sight. The cemetery was a place of sorrow, but this was different. The boy's cries pierced through the stillness, drawing Earl's attention away from his own grief. He felt a strange tug at his heart, an inexplicable connection to this child who shared the same sorrowful space. "Hey there," Earl called softly, cautious not to startle the boy. "Are you all right?" The boy looked up, startled, his eyes wide with surprise. Earl could see tears streaking down his cheeks, glistening in the sunlight. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, and for a moment they simply stared at each other. Earl could see the boy's deep brown eyes, reflecting both pain and confusion. I'm okay," the boy stammered, though his trembling voice betrayed him. Earl rose slowly, careful not to rush the boy. He felt an overwhelming urge to comfort him, to understand the pain that had brought this child to a graveyard, weeping like a lost soul. As he drew nearer, he noticed the boy's worn clothes, the scuffed sneakers, and the way he hugged his knees tightly, as if trying to hold himself together. "What's your name, son?" Earl asked gently, sitting down on the grass beside him. The cool earth felt damp against his legs, but he didn't mind. He wanted to be close to this boy, to let him know he was not alone. "Luke," the boy replied, his voice still shaky. "Luke Evans. Nice to meet you, Luke. I'm Earl. Are you here to visit someone?" Earl asked, glancing around at the headstones that surrounded them, each telling a story of life and loss. Luke nodded slowly, his gaze shifting back to the ground. "My mom," he whispered, his voice breaking. She died a few months ago." Earl's heart ached for the boy. Losing a parent was a pain he knew all too well, a wound that never truly healed. "I'm so sorry, Luke," he said softly. "I know what it's like. I lost my wife, Ruth, not long ago. It's hard, isn't it?" The boy looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. "You did?" Earl nodded, feeling a warmth in the connection they were forming. Two grieving souls finding solace in each other's company. "Yes. It feels like a piece of you is missing, doesn't it?" Luke wiped his eyes again, nodding in agreement. "I miss her every day. I keep thinking she's going to come back, that it was all just a bad dream. Earl sighed deeply, remembering how he had clung to that same hope after Ruth's passing. I felt that way too, at first. But then I learned that it's okay to miss them. It's okay to cry. They would want us to be happy, even if they're not here with us anymore. The boy looked thoughtful, his small brow furrowed as he processed Earl's words. I don't want to forget her. I don't want anyone to forget her, Luke said, his voice stronger now, a hint of defiance in it. Earl could see the fire in the boy's spirit, a glimmer of resilience that he admired. You won't forget her, Luke. As long as you remember the good times and keep her spirit alive in your heart, she will always be with you. They sat together in silence for a moment, the sounds of nature surrounding them, the rustling leaves, the distant chirping of birds, and the soft whisper of the wind. Earl could feel a bond forming, a connection that transcended their grief. It was as if Ruth had sent this boy to him, a reminder that love and loss were part of life's journey. Do you want to tell me about her? Earl asked, hoping to draw the boy out further. Luke hesitated for a moment, then nodded, his eyes lighting up with the memory. She loved to bake cookies. Every Sunday, she would let me help. I would mix the dough, and she would say I was her little chef. She always made the best chocolate chip cookies. We'd sit together and eat them warm out of the oven. Earl smiled, the boy's words warming his heart. That sounds wonderful, Luke. I bet you made some great memories together. Yeah, Luke said, his smile fading slightly. But she got sick. I didn't understand it at first. She went to the hospital, and then one day she didn't come home. I thought maybe she was just really tired, but she never came back. Earl felt tears prick at his own eyes, resonating with the boy's loss. It's hard to understand when we're so young, isn't it? Sometimes things happen that we can't explain, but it's important to hold on to those memories, like the cookies and the laughter. They keep our loved ones alive in our hearts. The boy nodded, his expression serious. I don't want to forget anything about her. I don't want anyone to forget her either. That's why I come here. I sit by her grave and talk to her like she can hear me. Earl's heart swelled with empathy. He understood the need to connect with those we've lost, to share our thoughts and feelings, hoping somehow they could still hear us. That's a beautiful way to honor her, Luke. I do the same with my wife, Ruth. I tell her about my day, what I miss, and I even share my worries. It makes me feel closer to her. As they spoke, Earl noticed how the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the cemetery. He realized they had been talking for quite some time, but he felt a sense of peace in this unexpected encounter. Do you come here often? He asked. Every week, Luke replied, his voice steady now. It's my way of remembering her. But I didn't expect to find anyone here today. I didn't expect to find you either, Earl said, a gentle smile creeping onto his face. But I'm glad I did. Sometimes, when we're lost in our own grief, we can find comfort in each other. Luke smiled back, the first hint of joy breaking through his sadness. Yeah, it's nice to talk to someone who understands. Earl felt a sense of purpose bloom within him. Perhaps this was not just a chance encounter, but a chance to help this young boy, to guide him through his grief just as he was still navigating his own. Would you like to come here together sometimes? We can share our stories and remember our loved ones together. Luke's eyes widened in surprise, and he nodded eagerly. Really? You would want to do that? Of course, Earl said, feeling warmth spread through his chest. You're not alone in this, Luke. We can support each other. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the cemetery, Earl and Luke shared stories, laughter, and tears. For the first time since losing Ruth, Earl felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this boy would help him heal as much as he sought to help Luke. Together, they could honor the memories of those they had lost while forging a new bond that would carry them forward through the dark days of grief. Little did they know, this unexpected encounter would change both their lives forever. intertwining their stories in ways they could never have imagined. Building a connection. Earl and Luke sat in the fading light of the autumn day, their conversation weaving through memories and shared emotions. As the golden hues of sunset painted the sky, Earl felt a sense of warmth blooming within him, a feeling he hadn't experienced since Ruth's passing. It was a reminder that even in the depths of sorrow, connection could still flourish. "Do you want to know something funny?" Luke asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. His eyes sparkled with curiosity. Earl smiled, intrigued. "Of course. What is it?" "My mom used to say that whenever we made cookies, the kitchen would smell like heaven. I thought that was the funniest thing. How could the kitchen smell like heaven? But now I get it. It really did smell heavenly, like love mixed with chocolate and a bit of magic," Luke said, a soft smile spreading across his face. Earl chuckled, imagining the boy's mother in the kitchen, joyfully baking cookies with her son. She was right, you know. Food cooked with love has a special kind of magic. It stays with you long after the last bite. Luke nodded, lost in thought for a moment. "I wish I could bake cookies with her just one more time." Earl felt a pang of longing for his own lost moments with Ruth, but he also felt inspired by Luke's spirit. "You know, you can still bake those cookies. It may not be the same, but you can carry on that tradition. You can make her favorite recipes and remember her that way." "Yeah," Luke said, his voice thoughtful. "Maybe I could do that, but I don't know how to bake them on my own." "Then how about we do it together? I might not be a master baker, but I know a thing or two about cookies," Earl suggested, feeling a sense of excitement at the prospect of spending more time with Luke. The boy's face lit up with enthusiasm. "Really? You'd help me?" "Absolutely," Earl replied, warmth filling his chest. "We can even have a little baking day at my house. I have some recipes I think you'd like, and I'll bet we can come up with some new ones too." "I'd like that a lot," Luke said, a genuine smile brightening his face. It was a beautiful moment, and Earl savored the way the boy's laughter floated through the air, reminding him of Ruth's laughter in the kitchen. As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting a warm glow across the cemetery, Earl glanced at his watch. "Wow, time really flies when you're having a good conversation," he remarked. "I should probably be heading home soon, but I don't want to leave you here alone." "I can walk home," Luke insisted, though Earl could hear the faint quiver of uncertainty in his voice. "How far do you live from here?" Earl inquired, concern flickering in his chest. The last thing he wanted was for the boy to feel alone, especially after opening up about his mother. "Not too far," Luke replied, his gaze flickering toward the horizon. "Just a few blocks away. I walk home after visiting my mom." Earl considered this for a moment. "How about I give you a ride? It's getting dark, and I'd feel better knowing you got home safely." Luke hesitated for a brief moment, glancing down the path toward his home. He seemed to be weighing the options, the internal conflict evident on his face. After a moment, he nodded reluctantly. "Okay, that would be nice." Earl felt a rush of relief. "Great, let's go then." He stood up and offered his hand to Luke, who took it hesitantly. As they walked together, Earl felt a protective urge wash over him, wanting to ensure that Luke knew he was safe and cared for. The two made their way to Earl's old Savin parked near the entrance of the cemetery. Earl opened the passenger door for Luke and watched as he climbed in, fastening his seatbelt with a look of concentration. Earl slid into the driver's seat and started the engine, the familiar rumble providing a sense of comfort. As they pulled away from the cemetery, Luke gazed out of the window, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the streetlights. "Do you come to visit your wife every day?" he asked, breaking the silence that had settled in the car. "Yes, I do," Earl replied, his voice steady. "Every day since she passed away. It's my way of keeping her memory alive. I tell her about my day, what's been happening in my life. It feels like she's still with me in some way." "I wish I could do that too," Luke said softly. but I don't know if my mom can hear me anymore." Earl glanced at the boy, noticing the shadow of doubt clouding his expression. "I believe she can, Luke. Love doesn't just disappear. It lingers, like the aroma of those cookies your mom used to make. Whenever you think of her, whenever you remember her laughter and her love, she is there, listening and watching over you." Luke nodded slowly, absorbing Earl's words. "That makes sense. I'll keep talking to her then." As they turned onto a quiet residential street lined with modest homes, Earl felt a sense of urgency to encourage Luke further. "And remember, you're not alone in this. You have your memories, and now you have a new friend too." Luke glanced over at him, surprise etched across his face. "You're my friend." "Absolutely," Earl said with a smile. "And I want to be here for you, to help you however I can. We can be there for each other, right?" "Yeah," Luke replied, his voice growing more confident. "I'd like that." Earl parked the car in front of a small two-story house with a simple white picket fence. The porch light flickered on as they approached the front door. "This is my stop," Luke said, unbuckling his seatbelt and looking at Earl with a mix of gratitude and apprehension. Before Luke stepped out of the car, Earl reached out to him. "You know, I'm really proud of you for coming to the cemetery and sharing your feelings with me. It takes a lot of courage to talk about loss." The boy's eyes widened with surprise, and then he broke into a smile. "Thank you. It felt good to talk to someone." Earl nodded. "And I look forward to our baking day. We can make those cookies your mom loved and honor her memory together." "Definitely. I can't wait," Luke said, his enthusiasm infectious. As Luke stepped out of the car, he paused, turning back to Earl. "Can I come back to the cemetery tomorrow? Maybe we can talk more." "Of course," Earl replied, feeling the warmth in his heart. "I'll be there, and we can share more stories. I'll even bring some cookies for us to share." "Okay," Luke exclaimed, his eyes lighting up. "See you tomorrow, Earl." As Luke hurried up the porch steps, Earl watched him go, feeling an overwhelming sense of purpose. This unexpected bond had blossomed in the unlikeliest of places, and he was grateful for it. Maybe this little boy could help him heal as much as he could help Luke navigate the stormy seas of grief. Earl drove home, his heart lighter than it had been in months. He parked in the driveway and stepped inside the house, the familiar stillness washing over him. But this time, it didn't feel as suffocating. Instead, it felt like a space full of potential, a place where he could create new memories and a new connection. He made his way to the kitchen, pausing to look at the pictures of Ruth that adorned the walls. Her laughter seemed to echo in his mind, and he could almost hear her voice urging him to embrace this new friendship. Perhaps Ruth had brought Luke into his life as a gift, a way to remind him that love could still flourish, even in the face of loss. Earl felt a renewed sense of hope settle within him as he set about preparing for the following day. He dug through the old recipe books and found a worn-out page with Ruth's handwriting, detailing the chocolate chip cookie recipe they had made together countless times. Each ingredient and instruction seemed to whisper memories of laughter and warmth. With a smile on his face, Earl decided to prepare for Luke's visit. He gathered the ingredients, relishing the thought of sharing something meaningful with the boy. He could almost envision them standing side by side in the kitchen, flour dusting their noses as they created something delicious together, a new memory born from the ashes of their shared grief. As the evening wore on, Earl found himself feeling lighter, almost as if the weight of his sorrow had begun to lift. He couldn't wait to see Luke again, to share stories, laughter, and most importantly, love. Tomorrow would be a new beginning, a chance to honor the past while stepping into a future that held the promise of healing and connection. A new tradition. The following morning, Earl awoke to the gentle light streaming through the window, illuminating the small kitchen that had once been filled with Ruth's vibrant energy. He stretched, feeling a sense of excitement that had eluded him for months. Today was the day he would share the joys of baking with Luke, continuing a tradition that had once brought him so much happiness. As he moved through his morning routine, Earl couldn't shake the anticipation building inside him. He could almost hear Ruth's voice encouraging him, reminding him that love flourished in shared moments, no matter how simple they might be. He poured himself a cup of coffee, letting the rich aroma fill the air as he gathered the ingredients for their baking day. The kitchen began to take shape as he set out the butter, sugar, flour, and chocolate chips, each item carefully arranged as he envisioned the fun they would have. Earl had decided to make Ruth's famous chocolate chip cookies, a recipe that had brought them both so much joy. With the ingredients laid out, he prepared his space, eager to create a warm and inviting atmosphere. Earl turned on the radio, allowing the soft strains of music to fill the room, the melodies intertwining with the scent of fresh coffee. He glanced at the clock, counting down the minutes until Luke would arrive. When the time finally came, Earl stood at the front door, heart pounding with excitement and a hint of nervousness. He had spent years alone, and now, welcoming this young boy into his home felt like a significant step, a step toward healing. Moments later, he heard the sound of small feet pattering up the front steps, followed by a tentative knock on the door. Earl opened it with a smile, finding Luke standing there, his eyes wide with excitement. The boy was wearing a bright red hoodie, the fabric slightly too big for him, and his hair was tousled from the wind. He held a small tin in his hands, a hopeful look on his face. "Hi, Earl," Luke exclaimed, his voice full of energy. "I brought some chocolate chips for us to use." Earl's heart swelled at the boy's thoughtfulness. "That's fantastic, Luke. Come in. I've got everything else ready for us." As Luke stepped inside, he took a moment to soak in the warmth of the house. The faint scent of coffee mixed with the sweet notes of vanilla filled the air, and Earl felt a wave of nostalgia wash over him. It reminded him of the many mornings spent in the kitchen with Ruth, the two of them working side by side, laughter echoing off the walls. "Wow, it smells amazing in here," Luke declared, his eyes wide with wonder. "Thank you. I wanted it to feel special for our baking day," Earl said, pulling out a chair for Luke at the kitchen table. "Are you ready to become a master baker today?" "Yes," Luke replied, his enthusiasm palpable. He set the tin of chocolate chips down on the table with a flourish, as if he were unveiling a treasure. Earl chuckled, delighted by the boy's excitement. "All right, first things first. Do you remember how to make the dough? We'll start with butter and sugar." With Luke's eager assistance, they began mixing the ingredients, the rhythmic sound of the whisk against the bowl filling the kitchen with a sense of purpose. Earl found himself sharing stories as they worked, recounting the times he and Ruth had baked together, how they would playfully argue over the perfect ratio of chocolate chips to cookie dough. "I didn't know you could have cookie arguments," Luke laughed, his eyes sparkling. "What would you argue about?" "Mostly about how many chocolate chips to add," Earl replied, grinning. "I always thought more was better, but Ruth had a way of knowing just the right amount to make them perfect. I guess she was right more often than not." As they mixed the dough, Earl noticed how Luke's laughter brightened the room. The boy's joy was contagious, reminding him of the times he and Ruth had created magic together in this very space. Once the dough was ready, they moved on to shaping the cookies. Earl guided Luke through the process, showing him how to scoop the dough onto the baking sheets. Luke was all concentration, his brow furrowed as he formed each cookie with care. "Do you think my mom would like these?" Luke asked, pausing to look up at Earl, his eyes earnest. "I know she would," Earl replied, feeling a lump rise in his throat. "Every bite will carry your love for her, and she'll be so proud of you." Luke smiled, a glimmer of hope shining in his eyes. "I want her to be happy wherever she is." "She is," Earl assured him. "And every time you bake, you're creating a piece of her legacy, a way to keep her spirit alive." Once the cookies were shaped, they placed them in the oven, and Luke leaned against the counter, watching as the cookies began to bake. The kitchen filled with a delightful aroma, evoking memories of happy times spent with Ruth. Earl could see the boy's excitement grow as the cookies transformed in the oven, expanding and browning perfectly. I can't wait to taste them," Luke exclaimed, practically bouncing on his feet. "They're going to be delicious. Just you wait," Earl promised, a warm smile spreading across his face. "While we wait, how about we make some hot chocolate to go with our cookies?" "Yes, that sounds awesome," Luke replied, his enthusiasm palpable. They quickly set to work preparing the hot chocolate, the simple act of stirring and chatting bringing them closer together. Earl was amazed at how natural their friendship felt, as if they had known each other for years rather than just a couple of days. "Do you have any brothers or sisters?" Luke asked, his curiosity piqued. Earl shook his head, pouring hot milk into 2 mugs. "No, just me. It was always Ruth and me, but I've always wanted a big family, filled with laughter and love. What about you?" Luke's expression grew serious. "I'm an only child, too. It was just me and my mom. Sometimes I wish I had siblings to play with, but I guess it was nice having her all to myself." Earl nodded, understanding the weight of the boy's words. "I can imagine. It's special to have that kind of bond, but it can also feel lonely sometimes." "Yeah," Luke said, his voice softening. "When she was sick, I felt really lonely, but now I'm glad to have you as a friend." Earl felt a surge of warmth at Luke's words. "I'm glad too, Luke. You're a wonderful friend. We can support each other through this, remember?" "Right," Luke said, grinning. "So, do you think I could learn to bake other things too? Like cakes or pies?" "Absolutely. We can have many more baking days. We'll make a whole cookbook of recipes together," Earl replied, his heart swelling at the idea. Before they could continue their conversation, the timer on the oven chimed, signaling that the cookies were ready. Earl opened the oven, revealing a tray of golden brown cookies, their edges perfectly crisped and the centers soft and chewy. "Wow, they look amazing," Luke exclaimed, practically bouncing on his toes. Earl carefully removed the tray from the oven, allowing the cookies to cool for a moment before transferring them to a wire rack. "Now for the best part," he said, pouring the hot chocolate into mugs and placing them on the table. As they settled down to taste their creations, Earl watched as Luke took his first bite, his face lighting up with delight. "These are incredible. You're right. They taste like heaven," he exclaimed, his mouth full of cookie. Earl couldn't help but chuckle at the boy's enthusiasm. "Just like your mom used to make, right?" "Exactly," Luke said, nodding vigorously as he savored another bite. "Can we make these every week? How about we make it a tradition? Every week, we can bake something together," Earl proposed, feeling a sense of joy bubbling within him. "I'd love that," Luke replied, his eyes shining with excitement. "And we can make all kinds of things. Brownies, cupcakes, maybe even a big cake." As they continued to eat and share stories, Earl felt the barriers of loneliness begin to dissolve. Luke's presence brought a new light into his home, filling the space with laughter and hope. The cookies they had made together were not just a treat. They were a symbol of healing and a testament to the bond they were building. After finishing their cookies and hot chocolate, Earl leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile on his face. "Thank you for baking with me today, Luke. You really brought the joy back into this kitchen." Luke grinned, his cheeks dusted with crumbs. "Thank you for letting me come over and for being such a good friend." Earl felt a warmth spread through him, realizing that this new friendship was a gift, a reminder that life continued to offer moments of joy and connection, even in the face of loss. "Let's make a pact," Earl said, leaning forward with a conspiratorial grin. "No matter what happens, we'll always find a way to keep baking together. It'll be our special thing." "Deal," Luke declared, extending his small hand for a shake. Earl took it, feeling a surge of joy and purpose. They both understood that this connection would carry them through the darkest days ahead, and together they would honor the memories of their loved ones, forging new paths filled with hope and love. As the afternoon wore on, Earl felt a renewed sense of purpose. The darkness of his grief seemed to lift just a little, replaced by the light of friendship and the promise of shared memories. Luke had reminded him that life continued, and even in the shadow of loss, love could blossom anew. Their laughter echoed through the kitchen as they planned their next baking adventure, filled with the spirit of resilience and joy, a beautiful testament to their newfound bond. The strength of community. As the days turned into weeks, Earl and Luke's weekly baking sessions became a cherished routine. Their time together was filled with laughter, flour-dusted countertops, and the sweet aroma of freshly baked goods wafting through the house. Each session not only honed their baking skills, but also deepened their friendship, allowing both to explore their emotions surrounding loss and joy. One sunny Saturday morning, Earl awoke early, his mind brimming with ideas for their next baking adventure. He had decided to surprise Luke by inviting a few other kids from the neighborhood to join them. With his heart racing at the prospect, he envisioned a lively atmosphere filled with chatter, laughter, and the sweet sounds of baking. Earl believed that bringing in more children would help Luke feel a sense of belonging and community, a vital ingredient for healing. He spent the morning preparing, pulling out bowls and baking sheets, and making a list of ingredients for their favorite treats. Earl also decided to whip up a batch of brownies, knowing they would be a hit among the kids. As he mixed the ingredients, he reflected on how much his life had changed since meeting Luke. The once quiet house now echoed with life and laughter, and he felt grateful for the boy's presence. When Luke arrived, he immediately sensed that something was different. "Hey, Earl, what's going on today? It smells amazing," he exclaimed, his eyes darting around the kitchen. "Thank you. I have a surprise for you," Earl said, grinning as he wiped his hands on a kitchen towel. "We're going to have some friends join us today." "Friends? Really?" Luke's eyes widened with excitement. "Who's coming?" "I invited a few kids from the neighborhood. I thought it would be fun to have a little baking party," Earl replied, his heart warming at the thought of creating a vibrant atmosphere filled with youthful energy. Luke bounced on his toes, a bright smile spreading across his face. "This is going to be awesome. I can't wait to show them how to bake." As they prepared for their guests, Earl and Luke worked together seamlessly, sharing tasks and laughing as they measured ingredients and mixed batter. Soon enough, the doorbell rang, and Luke rushed to answer it, his excitement palpable. Standing on the doorstep were 3 children: Mia, a bubbly girl with curly hair; Ethan, a shy boy who hid behind his glasses; and Ava, a confident girl with a mischievous grin. Luke welcomed them with enthusiasm, introducing each friend to Earl. "Welcome, everyone. Are you ready to bake some delicious treats?" Earl asked, his smile infectious. The children cheered, their voices blending into a chorus of excitement. As they gathered around the kitchen table, Earl explained the plan for the day. They would make cookies, brownies, and a fun cake, all while learning some new techniques along the way. "First things first, let's wash our hands," Earl instructed, leading them to the sink. The children giggled as they splashed water and dried their hands on colorful dish towels. Once they were settled back at the table, Earl divided the tasks among them, ensuring that everyone had a chance to contribute. Luke took the lead, guiding his friends through the cookie-making process, his earlier shyness forgotten in the whirlwind of enthusiasm. "Okay, everyone, we need to cream the butter and sugar first," Luke said, showing them how to use the mixer. The kids took turns cranking the machine and squealed with delight when they saw the mixture fluff up. Earl observed them, feeling a swell of pride. Luke had transformed from a boy who had once sat alone on a bench to a confident leader, guiding his friends with laughter and joy. The kitchen buzzed with energy, a stark contrast to the quiet that had once enveloped the house. As the children mixed and measured, Earl took a moment to reflect on the power of community. He recalled how he had felt lost after Ruth's passing, drowning in sorrow. Now, watching Luke lead this group of friends, he realized how important it was to create connections, to surround oneself with love and support. After the cookies were in the oven, the group moved on to making brownies. Luke demonstrated how to melt the chocolate, his eyes wide with excitement. The others gathered around, mesmerized by the transformation of solid chocolate into a glossy liquid. "Wow, that looks so cool," Mia exclaimed, her face illuminated by the warm glow of the melting chocolate. Earl chuckled at the children's fascination. Chocolate has a bit of magic to it. It can turn any day into a good day. As they poured the melted chocolate into the mixing bowl, Ava looked up at Earl. "How do you know so much about baking? Did you learn from your mom?" Earl hesitated for a moment, a wave of nostalgia washing over him. "Actually, I learned from my wife, Ruth. She loved baking and taught me everything I know," he said, his voice softening. "She always believed that baking was a way to show love." "That's sweet," Ethan said quietly, nodding. "I like that." After mixing the brownies and placing them in the oven alongside the cookies, the group shifted their focus to the cake. Earl decided they would create a simple layered cake, allowing the kids to decorate it with colorful frosting and sprinkles. The children eagerly gathered around the countertop, each taking a turn to spread frosting, their faces lighting up with creativity. Luke led the way, encouraging everyone to add their own touch. "Let's make it a rainbow cake," Luke declared, grabbing a handful of colorful sprinkles and showering them over the frosting. The other kids quickly followed suit, adding their own creative touches to the cake. Earl watched, feeling a profound sense of happiness swell within him. This vibrant scene was a testament to the healing power of community, children coming together to create something beautiful, much like the friendships that had blossomed around him. He remembered the early days of his grief, the isolation that had engulfed him, and how far he had come in such a short time. As they finished decorating the cake, Luke turned to Earl, his eyes bright with excitement. "Can we make a special decoration for my mom on the cake? Like, maybe write her name?" Earl felt a lump rise in his throat, touched by the thoughtfulness behind Luke's suggestion. "That's a wonderful idea, Luke. Let's do that." Together, they found some edible letters, and the children carefully placed them on the cake, spelling out, "We love you, Mom." Earl could see the deep emotion in Luke's eyes as he worked, and he felt honored to be a part of this moment, a moment of remembrance and love. Once everything was baked and decorated, Earl led the children to the dining room, where they sat around the table adorned with their creations. The sight of the cookies, brownies, and the beautifully decorated cake brought a collective gasp of awe from the kids. "This looks amazing," Mia exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with delight. Earl felt a surge of pride. "You all did a fantastic job. Now it's time for the best part, tasting our hard work." The children cheered, their excitement filling the room. Earl served each child a plate of cookies and brownies, the sweet aroma wafting through the air as they dug into their creations. Luke's eyes widened as he took a bite of the cookie. "This is the best cookie ever," he shouted, a grin spreading across his face. Earl chuckled. One particular Saturday morning, as Earl prepared for their baking session, he decided it was time to introduce a new element to their routine. A community bake sale. The thought excited him. They could not only showcase their baking skills, but also raise money for a local charity that supported families in need. It would be a wonderful opportunity to involve the other kids and deepen their connections. Earl shared his idea with Luke when he arrived that morning. "How would you like to help me organize a bake sale? We could make all our favorite treats and sell them to help those who need it," he suggested, his enthusiasm bubbling over. Luke's eyes sparkled with excitement. "That sounds amazing. Can we make a big banner to advertise it? And maybe we can get the other kids to help, too." "Absolutely. We can turn this into a big project," Earl replied, feeling a sense of pride in Luke's initiative. Together, they set to work, discussing their plans while whipping up a batch of their famous cookies. Luke took the lead, instructing the younger kids on how to measure flour and butter. "Remember, the key to great cookies is to not overmix. We want them chewy," he proclaimed, his confidence shining through. As they baked, the idea of the bake sale took shape, and soon the kitchen was filled with not just the sound of laughter, but also the lively chatter of brainstorming. They designed colorful flyers, each child contributing their ideas. They planned to create a large banner that read, "Bake Sale for a Better Tomorrow," which would draw attention to their cause. Earl was amazed by the enthusiasm of the children. The prospect of doing something meaningful together ignited their spirits. They spent the next few days gathering supplies, crafting posters, and baking treats. Earl couldn't remember a time when he felt more alive, more connected to a purpose. He knew that they were not just creating delicious desserts, they were sowing seeds of hope within their community. As the day of the bake sale approached, Earl noticed Luke's excitement turning into something deeper. He sensed a shift within the boy, a growing awareness of how their actions could impact others. One afternoon, as they prepared a batch of cupcakes, Luke paused, looking thoughtful. "Earl," he began hesitantly, "do you think it will really help people? I mean, our bake sale?" Earl set down the mixing spoon and turned to face him, his heart swelling with pride for this thoughtful boy. "Absolutely, Luke. Every little bit helps, and it shows that we care. It's not just about the money. It's about coming together as a community to support one another." Luke nodded slowly, processing Earl's words. "I want to help people feel better. I know how it feels to be sad, and I don't want anyone else to feel alone like I did." Earl felt a lump in his throat, touched by Luke's vulnerability and understanding. "You're already doing that, Luke. You've brought joy into my life, and now we're spreading that joy to others. You're a shining light, you know that." A smile spread across Luke's face, and he returned to their baking with renewed vigor. They worked diligently, creating dozens of cookies, brownies, and cakes, each one infused with their love and care. Earl couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come together. This was not just a bake sale. It was a testament to resilience and the power of friendship. The day of the bake sale dawned crisp and clear, the sun shining brightly as they set up their table in front of the local community center. Earl had enlisted the help of the other kids, and soon the table was adorned with an array of colorful treats. Luke's eyes sparkled as he placed the "Bake Sale for a Better Tomorrow" banner prominently on display, its bright colors drawing in passersby. As the morning progressed, people began to stop by, drawn in by the delicious smells and the cheerful atmosphere. Luke greeted everyone with enthusiasm, sharing the story behind their bake sale and why it was important to him. Earl watched with pride as the boy engaged with the community, spreading warmth and joy in a way that was truly inspiring. "Thank you for supporting our bake sale. We're raising money to help families in need," Luke announced, his voice bright with excitement. "Every dollar goes to making someone's day a little better." The customers were captivated, not only by the delightful treats, but also by Luke's genuine passion. Earl could see that the other children were equally engaged, eager to help and participate. It felt good to be part of something bigger than themselves, a movement fueled by kindness and community spirit. As the day wore on, their table became a hub of activity. People came and went, sharing stories, laughter, and camaraderie. Earl found himself connecting with neighbors he had never spoken to before, exchanging recipes and fond memories. It was a beautiful reminder of the power of community, how small gestures could create bonds that strengthened everyone. After a few hours, the table was beginning to look sparse, and the kids were buzzing with excitement over their sales. Luke beamed with pride, his cheeks flushed with joy. "We're doing great, Earl. Look how many treats we've sold." Earl smiled back at him, feeling a swell of happiness. "You've done an incredible job, Luke. This wouldn't have been possible without your hard work and enthusiasm." As the afternoon sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, they gathered for a quick break. Earl brought out some lemonade and cookies, and they all sat together on a nearby bench, savoring their treats and basking in the glow of their success. "Can we do this again next month?" Maya asked, her eyes wide with excitement. I love baking with everyone. Absolutely. We can make it a monthly tradition, Earl replied, feeling a warmth spread through him. This was more than just a bake sale. It had turned into a community event, a time for friends to gather and share their talents. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the park, Earl felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The bake sale had not only raised money for families in need, but had also created a space for connection, laughter, and love. He looked around at the smiling faces of the children, and his heart swelled with gratitude. Thank you for being a part of this, he said, addressing the group. Today was about more than just baking. It was about building community, and each of you played an essential role. Luke nodded, his eyes bright. We're like a family now, right? Earl felt a lump rise in his throat again, and he nodded. Yes, we are. A family that supports and lifts each other up. As they packed up the remnants of their bake sale, Earl reflected on how far they had come. The journey of healing was often filled with ups and downs, but he realized that in every moment of connection, every shared smile, they had built a beautiful tapestry of friendship, love, and hope. With the night settling in and the stars beginning to twinkle overhead, Earl felt a renewed sense of purpose. This journey was far from over. There were many more moments to share, many more lives to touch. As he glanced at Luke, who was animatedly talking to Mia about their next baking adventure, Earl couldn't help but feel excited for the future. Together, they had not only baked delicious treats, but had also crafted a community rooted in compassion and understanding. And as they closed this chapter of their journey, Earl knew that new stories were waiting to unfold, each one filled with the promise of healing, love, and the beauty of connection. The legacy of love. The aftermath of the bake sale left Earl and Luke invigorated and hopeful. With each passing week, their bond grew stronger, and they became an inseparable duo in the kitchen. The laughter and joy that filled Earl's home were now a cherished melody in his heart. As autumn deepened, the chill in the air reminded them that the holidays were approaching. Earl felt a sense of urgency to harness the spirit of community they had cultivated. He wanted to ensure that not only their lives were touched by kindness, but that their efforts rippled outward to embrace those who might feel alone during the holiday season. Luke, how about we organize a holiday cookie drive? Earl suggested one Saturday morning, stirring his coffee while watching the boy carefully measure flour. We can bake cookies and deliver them to families in need. It would be a wonderful way to spread joy. Luke's eyes sparkled with excitement. Yes, we can decorate them too. I want to make them look really festive. His enthusiasm was infectious, and Earl felt the warmth of purpose wrap around him like a cozy blanket. Together, they began planning the cookie drive, involving the other kids from their neighborhood. Luke took the lead once again, organizing meetings and spreading the word. Earl couldn't help but admire the leadership qualities that had blossomed in the boy. They met every week to bake and decorate, turning Earl's kitchen into a festive wonderland filled with colorful sprinkles, frosting, and laughter. The children created intricate designs on their cookies, snowmen, Christmas trees, and stars, each one infused with creativity and joy. Earl provided guidance, but it was the kids who brought the magic, their imaginations running wild as they transformed simple sugar cookies into holiday treasures. As the weeks passed, they amassed a significant number of cookies. The excitement within the group was palpable, and the idea of delivering their creations to those in need motivated them all. They decided to collaborate with a local charity that supported families facing difficult circumstances during the holiday season. Earl reached out to the charity, explaining their project and offering their assistance. We want to spread some holiday cheer by delivering cookies to families who might be struggling this year, he said, his voice filled with sincerity. The charity's coordinator, a kind woman named Clara, was touched by their initiative. That's a wonderful idea, Earl. We would be grateful for your help. We can connect you with families who would truly appreciate the gesture. On the day they planned to deliver the cookies, Earl gathered the children at his house. The air was filled with excitement as they packaged the cookies into festive boxes, each decorated with drawings and messages of love. Luke led the charge, making sure everyone had a role in the process. "Let's write little notes to go with each box," he suggested, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "We can tell the families that we're thinking of them." The kids eagerly picked up colorful markers and began writing heartfelt messages. Some wrote, "You are not alone," while others simply included a drawing of a smiley face or a heart. As they worked, Earl watched the children's faces light up with joy, realizing that they were not just giving cookies, they were sharing their hearts. When the boxes were ready, Earl loaded them into his car, and the group set out to deliver them. The children chattered excitedly, their spirits high with the anticipation of making someone's day brighter. Earl felt a swell of pride as he observed the genuine excitement radiating from each child. Their first stop was a small apartment complex on the outskirts of town. Earl parked, and the kids hopped out, boxes in hand. Luke led the way, his excitement palpable as he approached the first door. He knocked, his little heart racing with anticipation. A moment later, a woman opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise. "Hello," Luke said brightly. "We brought you cookies. We hope you enjoy them." The woman's expression softened as she looked at the colorful boxes, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, thank you so much. This is so thoughtful of you." Earl stepped forward, his heart swelling with emotion. "We just wanted to share some holiday cheer," he said warmly. "You're not alone. We're thinking of you." As the children handed over the boxes, the woman beamed, her gratitude evident. "This means the world to me. You have no idea how much this will brighten our holiday." With each delivery, Earl felt the joy in giving grow. The smiles on the family's faces were like bright stars, illuminating the cold winter day. Luke was a beacon of light, his laughter ringing through the air as he made connections with each family they visited. After several deliveries, they reached a modest house with decorations adorning the windows, a single strand of lights, and a small wreath hanging on the door. Earl knocked gently, and when the door opened, a young girl peeked out, her eyes filled with curiosity. "Hi there. We have cookies for you," Luke announced, holding out a brightly decorated box. The girl's face broke into a smile as she accepted the gift. "Thank you. I love cookies." Earl knelt down to the girl's level, noticing the joy shining in her eyes. "We hope you enjoy them. They were made with love." "Do you want to come in?" the girl asked eagerly, her innocence radiating warmth. "My mom is making hot cocoa. You can have some." Earl exchanged a glance with Luke, who nodded enthusiastically. "That sounds great," he replied, feeling the warmth of connection grow. As they stepped into the cozy living room, the smell of cocoa wafted through the air, and the girl's mother appeared, her expression one of surprise. "Hello. What a lovely surprise. Thank you so much for these cookies. We just wanted to spread some holiday cheer," Earl explained. The girl led them to the kitchen, where the mother poured steaming mugs of hot cocoa, topped with whipped cream and sprinkles. Earl watched as the children animatedly shared their cookie-making stories, their laughter echoing in the small space. This was what it was all about, sharing, connecting, and lifting each other up. As they enjoyed their cocoa and cookies, Earl felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. The warmth of the holiday season surrounded them, each moment imbued with love and joy. After their visit, Earl and Luke continued on their journey, making several more deliveries. Each encounter reinforced the importance of community and compassion, showing that even the smallest gestures could create ripples of kindness. By the end of the day, they had delivered dozens of cookie boxes, each one infused with the warmth of their efforts. As they returned home, Earl looked at Luke, who was buzzing with excitement. "That was the best day ever. I can't believe how happy we made everyone." Earl smiled, his heart full. "You were amazing today, Luke. You helped make a difference in those families' lives. This is just the beginning of what we can do together." Over the following weeks, as the holidays approached, Earl and Luke continued to embrace the spirit of giving. They organized additional community events, inviting more children to join in their efforts. They hosted a toy drive, collecting toys and games to distribute to families in need, and a clothing drive to ensure everyone had warm clothes for the winter. The community rallied around them, and soon, their little initiative blossomed into a movement of kindness. Neighbors brought donations, volunteered their time, and offered support. Earl could hardly believe the transformation he had witnessed. What had started as a baking project had evolved into a beautiful legacy of love. On the eve of the holiday season, Earl hosted a gathering to celebrate their achievements. He decorated his home with twinkling lights, and the children helped set up a large table laden with treats they had prepared together. The room glowed with warmth and laughter, filled with the voices of families who had come together in the spirit of community. As the evening unfolded, Earl stood up to address everyone gathered. "Thank you all for being here tonight. This past month has been truly remarkable. Together, we've created something beautiful, something that will continue to impact our community for years to come." The room erupted in applause, and Luke's eyes sparkled with pride. "We're like a family now," he shouted, echoing the sentiment that had grown stronger with each passing day. As the night continued, stories were shared, laughter filled the air, and the bond among everyone present deepened. Earl watched as Luke engaged with the other children, their shared experiences creating a tapestry of love that intertwined their lives. When the time came to conclude the evening, Earl felt a sense of fulfillment and gratitude. He gathered everyone in a circle and invited them to share their hopes for the upcoming year. One by one, they expressed their dreams of continuing their community efforts, spreading kindness, and making the world a better place. Earl listened, his heart swelling with pride. These children were not only the future, they were already making a difference. They had embraced the power of love and connection, and he was grateful to be part of their journey. As the evening came to a close, Earl glanced at the decorations adorning his home, each ornament and twinkling light symbolizing the warmth of community and the resilience of the human spirit. He knew that the bonds they had forged would carry them through the challenges that lay ahead. Later that night, as he tucked Luke into bed, Earl felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. "You've changed my life, Luke," he said softly, brushing a hand through the boy's hair. "You've taught me that love can flourish even in the darkest of times." Luke's eyes sparkled with sleepiness, but a smile spread across his face. "And you've taught me that family can be made from love, not just blood." Earl's heart swelled with emotion as he kissed Luke goodnight. He understood now that love transcended loss, and through their shared journey, they had created something beautiful together. The following morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, painting the world in hues of gold and pink, Earl felt a renewed sense of hope. The legacy of love they had built would continue to grow, impacting lives far beyond their own. With Luke by his side, he knew they would embark on many more adventures, sharing joy, kindness, and the magic of connection. As the holiday season unfolded, Earl and Luke continued to spread warmth and cheer, reminding everyone they encountered of the beauty that comes from community, love, and the simple act of giving. The world around them may have been filled with challenges, but together they would face each day with open hearts, ready to make a difference in the lives of others. And in the quiet moments spent in each other's company, Earl knew that he had not just found a friend in Luke. He had rediscovered the essence of life itself, a tapestry woven from love, resilience, and the shared commitment to uplift one another. This was the true meaning of family, and Earl felt grateful for the beautiful journey they had embarked upon together.